Hi everyone, it's Alina here from Virgin Money. Now with the housing market starting up again, we're hearing that people want to know what the emerging trends are in property, what to buy and how to make your home as appealing as possible in a COVID climate. We're joined by housing market expert Lucian Cook from Savills to explore what buyers and sellers should be focused on right now. Lucian, thank you so much for joining me. We have a few questions that I'd like to put to you, starting with, is the housing market in a slump right now, or has it held up fairly well given the pause on viewings and house moves due to lockdown?
We think there's probably about 4 reasons why the lockdown won't have had a hugely dramatic effect on prices. The first is in the run-up to this, house price growth was pretty modest. The second is that interest rates have been cut and incredibly low. The third one is that the government has been pretty swift to protect jobs, particularly through its furloughing scheme. And the fourth one is that lenders, mortgage lenders, generally have been pretty understanding with the likes of mortgage holidays and the like.
Okay, I have another question for you. Do you think it could recover quickly, or will the impact of job losses and reduced income mean it could take time?
Yeah, well, look, I think over the course of this year, it's likely we will see a bit of downward pressure on prices, maybe in the order of 5 to 10%. And the speed of the recovery will really be dependent on the speed of the economic recovery. Most economists are expecting that will be V-shaped, which is good news. But still, I think it will take time for households just to rebuild some confidence in their finances. And that means that progressively they will come back to the market.
And do you expect that taste and what's important to a buyer has changed due to COVID?
Some priorities undoubtedly will change. A dedicated space where you can easily work from home, good access to Wi-Fi, critically important, and probably also, just given that feeling of confinement, people thinking much more about their outside space. So the ability to have a relatively easily maintained garden is going to be something I think that the buyers will think is much more important as we go forward.
That actually leads me on very well to my next question, which is, do you think that properties with gardens can command a premium over those without, or with a small outside space?
Yeah, I certainly think that buyers are going to look at the outside space more. And I think that those properties with a reasonable sized garden that, again, is pretty easy to maintain, so it's not a huge imposition on them, it's certainly going to be much easier to sell. And probably as a result, you will find that the values of those in the short term hold up more strongly, and possibly they may even recover in value a bit more quickly.
I wanted to ask, what about apartments? Will people still want to live in them?
Yeah, well, look, I think whilst you're going to find that it's going to be younger families who are going to look for perhaps suburban living, or perhaps moving out a little bit further into commuter land or into villages and the countryside because they look for those space. City centre apartments are still going to be really important to younger homeowners and indeed tenants. And there, I think particularly as we go forward, accessibility to those is going to be really important. Location is going to be very important, particularly where you can walk and cycle to work going forward. And I think those are going to be the departments which are going to be in most demand as we go forward.
Now, this is an interesting one. Do you expect a mass exodus of city living as companies adopt working from home permanently?
I don't think it's going to be a mass exodus. I think that's over pushing the point. I think it's going to be those people who've been thinking about moving, perhaps those people who've extended their home, they've reached the limits of the space that they occupy. Those are going to be the people who perhaps look further out to get more space, and perhaps therefore look to village life, suburban life. People still don't move house that often, and the market has this remarkable ability to rebalance over any period.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions left for you. Firstly, what interior trends do you think will emerge? Will open plan living be less appealing? What about home office trends?
One of the things that we found over the period of confinement is that that's family space, often which is the kitchen, dining, quasi-living room, is the hub of family life. And so I think that will remain critically important for a lot of buyers. The one area where we know some people have struggled is their ability to work from home, particularly if you've got 2 people working from home. And so I think, the office space and the ability to have a separate area to work is going to be much more important going forward.
Right, final question that I have for you is, do you think that there are support measures that could be put in place that could help reignite the property sector and give people more of a chance to enter the market?
There have been calls for a stamp duty holiday, but we haven't had any real indication from government that they're likely to play ball with that. I think in other areas, Help to Buy is likely to be increasingly important. You may find that some first-time buyers have had to dip into their savings. Equally, the bank of mum and dad may find it a bit more difficult to help their children on the housing ladder. So a scheme like Help to Buy will be more important for buyers and indeed, I think, for house builders generally. And then finally, we got key workers. We value our key workers. We have learned to value our key workers much more over the period of the last 6 to 8 weeks. And I think the government will probably use the planning system and things like the First Homes policy to try and bring forward more affordable housing for those particularly.
Lucian, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Alina. It's been my pleasure.
Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we're answering loads more of your questions about money.
Plus, make sure that you send in any questions that you may have through our website or on social media using the hashtag #MoneyOnYourMind.